Sarah Thompson lived in a big, beautiful house on the edge of a quiet suburban neighborhood. People often called her life perfect. She was a self-made millionaire who had worked hard to build her business from scratch. Every morning she would wake up early, dress sharply for work, and head to her office where she made important decisions. But despite her success, Sarah's real pride came from being a mother to her 2 children, Emma, her teenage daughter, and Ethan, her 9-year-old son. Ethan was special, not just because he was her child, but also because he saw the world differently. He was autistic. While Ethan brought immense joy to Sarah's life, raising him wasn't easy. He struggled with communication, rarely spoke unless prompted, and often seemed lost in his own thoughts. Sometimes he would sit quietly for hours, staring at patterns on the wall or arranging toys in straight lines. Other times, loud noises or sudden changes upset him so much that he'd cry uncontrollably. Sarah tried everything she could think of to help Ethan. She hired therapists, signed him up for speech classes, and even enrolled him in special programs designed for kids like him. Week after week, she drove him to appointments, hoping each session would bring progress. But no matter how hard they worked, it felt like something was missing. Ethan remained distant, unable to fully connect with the people around him. One sunny afternoon, Sarah returned home earlier than usual. She had finished a meeting ahead of schedule and decided to surprise Ethan and Emma by coming back early. As she walked through the front door, she noticed something strange. The house was unusually quiet. Normally, there would be sounds of Emma practicing piano upstairs, or Ethan humming softly in his room. But today, silence greeted her. Curious, Sarah tiptoed toward Ethan's bedroom. The door was slightly ajar, and when she peeked inside, she froze. Sitting cross-legged on the floor was Maria, their longtime housekeeper, surrounded by colorful books and flashcards. Ethan sat across from her, his eyes wide with excitement. What shocked Sarah most, however, wasn't what she saw. It was what she heard. Maria was speaking in multiple languages. First, she said something in French, then switched to Spanish, followed by German, Italian, Mandarin, Hindi, and even Swahili. Each time she spoke, Ethan listened intently, repeating some words and laughing at others. Occasionally, he clapped his hands or pointed to pictures in a book, clearly enjoying himself. It was unlike anything Sarah had ever witnessed before. For a moment, Sarah stood frozen, unsure of what to do. Her mind raced with questions. Why was Maria teaching Ethan so many languages? Had she always done this behind her back? And more importantly, why was Ethan responding so well when he barely spoke English? Finally, Sarah cleared her throat and knocked gently on the doorframe. Both Maria and Ethan looked up, startled. For a brief second, guilt flickered across Maria's face, but it quickly disappeared as she smiled warmly at Sarah. "Madam," she said, standing up, "you're home early." "Yes," Sarah replied, still trying to process what she had just seen. What's going on here?" Maria hesitated for a moment, glancing down at Ethan, who was now flipping through one of the books. Then, taking a deep breath, she began to explain. "I've been working with Ethan during playtime," she said softly. "He seems to enjoy learning new words, especially in different languages. I didn't mean to overstep, I only wanted to help." Sarah's heart softened. She could see the sincerity in Maria's eyes and the genuine happiness on Ethan's face. Still, confusion lingered. "Why languages?" she asked. "And how is he able to pick them up so easily?" Maria shrugged modestly. "In my village, we grew up speaking many languages. It's normal there. When I started working here, I noticed Ethan liked listening to music and repeating sounds. So I thought maybe introducing him to new ones might interest him. It turns out, he loves it." As Sarah listened, she couldn't help but feel amazed. All these years, she had spent thousands of dollars on therapies and specialists, yet here was Maria, achieving breakthroughs simply by talking to Ethan in different tongues. It was humbling and inspiring. That evening, Sarah stayed up late, thinking about what she had seen. She replayed the scene in her mind. The laughter, the clapping, the way Ethan's face lit up whenever he repeated a word correctly. It was the happiest she had ever seen him, yet doubts crept in too. Was this method sustainable? Would it actually help Ethan communicate better in the long run? Or was it just a temporary distraction? The next morning, Sarah approached Maria, again this time with curiosity rather than suspicion. "Tell me more about what you've been doing with Ethan," she said. "How did you start? And why do you think it works?" Maria smiled, sensing Sarah's openness. "It's not complicated, madam," she explained. "I just follow his lead. If he likes a sound or a word, I repeat it in another language. Sometimes we sing songs or read stories together. It's all about making it fun for him." Sarah nodded slowly, her mind buzzing with possibilities. Maybe this unconventional approach was exactly what Ethan needed. After all, traditional methods hadn't yielded the results she hoped for. Perhaps it was time to try something different, to let go of rigid plans and embrace creativity. Over the next few days, Sarah observed Ethan and Maria closely. She watched as they played games, sang nursery rhymes, and flipped through picture books filled with foreign words. She saw how Ethan's confidence grew with each passing day. He began mimicking phrases, pointing to objects, and even attempting short sentences. It was slow progress, but it was progress nonetheless. Still, Sarah knew she couldn't rely solely on Maria. She reached out to experts, asking for their opinions on multilingual approaches for autistic children. Some were skeptical, warning her that mixing too many languages might confuse Ethan further. Others encouraged her to continue, citing studies that showed the benefits of bilingualism for cognitive development. Despite the mixed feedback, Sarah decided to trust her instincts and Maria. Together, they crafted a plan to incorporate language learning into Ethan's daily routine. They bought flashcards, downloaded apps, and found cartoons in various languages. Slowly but surely, Ethan's world expanded beyond the confines of his small bedroom. Looking back, Sarah realized that day had marked a turning point, not just for Ethan, but for their entire family. By stumbling upon Maria's secret, she had discovered a new path forward. It was unpredictable, unconventional, and full of challenges, but it was also filled with hope. And sometimes hope was all a mother needed to keep moving forward. The next morning, Sarah woke up with 1,000 questions swirling in her mind. She couldn't stop thinking about what she had witnessed the day before. Maria sitting on the floor, teaching Ethan multiple languages, and Ethan responding with such enthusiasm. It was unlike anything she had ever seen. But the more she thought about it, the more curious she became. Who exactly was Maria? And why had she chosen to teach Ethan languages instead of sticking to her usual duties as a housekeeper? Determined to get answers, Sarah decided to sit down with Maria during breakfast. Emma was already at school and Ethan was playing quietly in his room, so they had the kitchen to themselves. As Maria poured herself a cup of coffee, Sarah cleared her throat. "Maria," she began gently, "I want to talk to you about something important." Maria looked up, her expression calm but slightly wary. "Of course, madam, what is it?" "I saw you yesterday with Ethan," Sarah continued. "You were teaching him all those languages, French, Spanish, German, and even Swahili. I've never seen him respond like that before. He seemed so happy and engaged. I need to understand why you started doing this." Maria hesitated for a moment, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee mug. Then, taking a deep breath, she began to share her story. Maria came from a small village nestled in the mountains of Colombia. Growing up, life wasn't easy. Her family didn't have much money and opportunities were scarce. But one thing set her community apart. It was surrounded by people who spoke different languages. Neighboring towns spoke Spanish while others used indigenous dialects or bits of Portuguese and English picked up from travelers. For Maria, learning these languages wasn't optional. It was necessary for survival. "When I was little," Maria explained, "my mother would send me to the market to sell fruits and vegetables. The traders came from everywhere: Brazil, Venezuela, Ecuador. If I wanted to make a sale, I had to speak their language. At first, I only knew a few words, but over time I learned more. By the time I was 10, I could hold conversations in 4 or 5 languages." Sarah listened intently, fascinated by Maria's background. She had always assumed Maria was simply a hardworking housekeeper, someone who kept the house clean and took care of the children. But now, she realized there was so much more to her. "What about your family?" Sarah asked. "Did they also learn languages?" Maria nodded. "Yes, but not everyone was good at it. My older sister preferred cooking, and my father worked in the fields. But my younger brother, he was different. Like Ethan." At the mention of Ethan, Sarah leaned forward. "Your brother? Was he autistic too?" Maria's eyes softened as she nodded. "Yes. His name was Miguel. He was 3 years younger than me. When he was born, doctors told my parents he might never speak properly. They didn't use the word autism back then, but looking back, I think that's what it was." Sarah felt a lump rise in her throat. She had no idea Maria had experienced something similar growing up. "What happened?" she asked softly. Maria smiled faintly, lost in memories. "Miguel was a sweet boy, but he struggled to communicate. He cried a lot when he was frustrated because he couldn't express himself. One day I noticed he liked listening to songs on the radio, so I started singing to him. Then I taught him simple words in Spanish, then Portuguese, then whatever else I knew. Slowly, he began repeating them. It wasn't perfect, but it helped him connect with us. Music and language. They became his way of understanding the world." Sarah sat silently, absorbing every word. She couldn't help but draw parallels between Maria's brother and Ethan. Both boys were trapped in their own worlds, unable to fully express themselves. Yet Maria had found a way to reach Miguel through sounds and words. Now she was doing the same for Ethan. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Sarah finally asked. "About your brother, about your experience with autism. I had no idea." Maria sighed, her gaze dropping to the table. "I wanted to, madam, but I wasn't sure how you'd react. You hired me to clean and cook, not to teach Ethan. I didn't want to overstep. I saw myself in him. I saw Miguel. And I thought, maybe I could help." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes as she reached across the table to squeeze Maria's hand. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for caring enough to try. You've given Ethan something I couldn't, a chance to find his voice." Over the following days, Sarah made it her mission to learn everything she could about Maria's methods. Together, they spent hours discussing strategies, brainstorming ideas, and planning activities for Ethan. Maria introduced Sarah to songs, games, and books from her childhood, explaining how each one could be adapted for Ethan's needs. One afternoon, Sarah watched as Maria and Ethan played a game called language charades. Maria would act out an action, like eating or running, and Ethan had to guess the word in whichever language they were practicing that day. If he guessed correctly, Maria would cheer and give him a high five. Watching Ethan laugh and clap his hands filled Sarah with a sense of hope she hadn't felt in years. But Maria didn't stop there. She also shared stories about her culture, showing Ethan pictures of her village and teaching him traditional dances. They celebrated festivals like Dia de los Muertos, decorating the house with colorful papel picado and baking pan de muerto. Through these experiences, Ethan began to see the world as a vibrant tapestry of sounds, sights, and traditions. As weeks turned into months, Sarah noticed subtle changes in Ethan. He became more confident, often initiating interactions with Maria, or Emma. Sometimes he would walk up to Sarah and point to objects, saying their names in different languages. "Apple," he'd say in English, then switch to manzana in Spanish or palme in French. Each new word felt like a victory. Still, not everyone understood Maria's approach. Some of Sarah's friends raised eyebrows when she mentioned Ethan's progress. "Languages, really?" one of them said during a lunch outing. "Isn't that a bit unconventional? Shouldn't he focus on mastering one language first?" Sarah bristled at the comment but chose to ignore it. She knew better than anyone that conventional methods hadn't worked for Ethan. Why should she stick to them now when something else was clearly making a difference? Even within her own household, doubts lingered. David, Sarah's husband, was supportive but cautious. "Are we sure this isn't overwhelming him?" he asked one evening after dinner. "Learning 9 languages at once seems like a lot, doesn't it?" Sarah shook her head firmly. It's not about perfection, David, it's about connection. Ethan is responding to this in ways he hasn't responded to anything else. That's worth exploring, don't you think? David eventually agreed, though he remained skeptical. Meanwhile, Maria continued refining her techniques, tailoring them to suit Ethan's unique personality. She introduced storytelling sessions where Ethan acted out tales in various languages, using props and costumes to bring characters to life. They also created art projects inspired by global cultures, painting flags, drawing landmarks, and crafting miniature models of famous monuments. Through it all, Ethan thrived. His confidence grew, and his ability to communicate improved dramatically. He started recognizing patterns in languages, noticing similarities between words like agua, water in Spanish, and aqua, water in Italian. These connections fascinated him, sparking a love for learning that Sarah had never seen before. One evening, as Sarah tucked Ethan into bed, he looked up at her and said, "Te quiero, Mama." "I love you, Mom," in Spanish. Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she hugged him tightly. For the first time in years, she felt truly hopeful about Ethan's future. Looking back, Sarah realized that Maria's secret past wasn't just a coincidence. It was a gift. Her experiences with Miguel had prepared her to understand Ethan in ways no therapist or specialist ever could. And while there was still a long road ahead, Sarah knew one thing for certain. Maria had changed their lives forever. By embracing an unconventional approach, they had unlocked a part of Ethan that had been hidden for so long. He was no longer just a boy struggling to communicate. He was a global citizen, fluent in the universal language of love and connection. As weeks turned into months, the bond between Ethan and Maria grew stronger. Sarah, too, found herself drawn deeper into their world of languages, songs, and stories. What started as a quiet experiment in Ethan's room had blossomed into a full-fledged journey of discovery. The house was no longer just a place to live. It became a vibrant hub of sounds, colors, and cultures. Every corner seemed alive with new possibilities. Each morning began with a routine that felt more like an adventure than a chore. After breakfast, Maria would gather Ethan in the living room, where they created what they called their language circle. Cushions were scattered on the floor, colorful flashcards lay neatly stacked, and a globe sat proudly in the center. This was their classroom, a space where rules didn't exist and creativity reigned supreme. Maria introduced a new language every few weeks, carefully choosing ones she thought Ethan might enjoy. One week they explored Japanese, learning how to say simple greetings like konnichiwa and hello and arigato, thank you. Another week they delved into Arabic, marveling at the flowing script and rhythmic pronunciations. Each session was filled with laughter, clapping, and occasional mistakes. But there was never any pressure to get things perfect. Ethan's progress amazed everyone who witnessed it. At first, he mimicked words hesitantly, stumbling over unfamiliar syllables. But soon he gained confidence, eagerly pointing to objects and naming them in different tongues. For example, when Sarah handed him an orange during snack time, he proudly declared, "Orange," in English, followed by naranja in Spanish and mikan in Japanese. His growing vocabulary wasn't just impressive, it was transformative. For the first time, Ethan had tools to express himself beyond grunts or gestures. But it wasn't just about words. Maria emphasized the importance of context, weaving cultural lessons into their activities. When they studied French, they baked croissants together, filling the kitchen with buttery aromas. During their exploration of Hindi, they celebrated Holi, throwing colored powders in the backyard until they were covered head to toe in vibrant hues. These experiences gave meaning to the languages, turning abstract sounds into tangible connections. Sarah watched all of this unfold with awe. She saw her son transform from a boy trapped in silence to one bursting with curiosity. It wasn't just his ability to speak multiple languages that thrilled her. It was the way his personality blossomed. He laughed more, smiled wider, and interacted confidently not only with Maria but also with Emma and even strangers at the park. Slowly but surely, Ethan was finding his place in the world. Emma, Ethan's older sister, initially viewed her brother's newfound passion with skepticism. As a teenager, she often rolled her eyes at what she called the language circus. But over time, she couldn't resist joining in. One evening, while helping Ethan practice Mandarin, Emma discovered she had a knack for tones. Together they sang nursery rhymes in Chinese, giggling whenever they mispronounced a word. Their shared laughter brought them closer, bridging the gap between sibling rivalry and genuine affection. Even David, Sarah's husband, warmed up to the idea. Though he still worried about overwhelming Ethan, he couldn't deny the positive changes. On weekends, he joined the family for cultural nights, where they cooked dishes from different countries and played traditional games. Once, during a German-themed night, David attempted to teach everyone how to yodel, a failed attempt that left everyone laughing until tears streamed down their faces. These moments reminded them that life wasn't just about challenges. It was also about joy. Outside the home, however, not everyone understood what Sarah and Maria were doing. Some therapists questioned whether focusing on multiple languages could confuse Ethan further. Children with autism often struggle with processing information, one specialist warned during a consultation. Adding so many languages might overwhelm him. Sarah listened politely but stood firm. "Ethan is thriving," she replied. "He's happier, more engaged, and communicating better than ever before. I can't ignore that." Other parents in their community whispered behind closed doors, labeling Sarah's approach as unorthodox or reckless. A few even suggested she was prioritizing novelty over proven therapies. But Sarah refused to let criticism dampen her spirits. She knew Ethan's progress spoke louder than any opinion. Despite the external doubts, the biggest challenge came from within, their own household staff. Maria's close bond with Ethan made some of the other employees feel overshadowed. One day, tension boiled over when Lisa, the part-time nanny, confronted Maria in the kitchen. "You're stepping out of line," Lisa snapped. "You're supposed to clean and cook, not play teacher. Let the professionals handle Ethan's education." Maria stiffened, clutching the dish towel in her hands. Before she could respond, Sarah entered the room. Sensing the tension, she intervened calmly. "Lisa, I appreciate your concern, but Maria has my full support. Her methods are working wonders for Ethan. If anything, we should be grateful for her dedication." Lisa huffed but said nothing more, retreating to another part of the house. However, the incident left a mark. Sarah realized she needed to address the issue before it escalated further. That evening, she gathered the entire household staff for a meeting. Sitting around the dining table, she explained Maria's role in Ethan's development. "This isn't about replacing anyone," she said firmly. "It's about teamwork. We're all here to support Ethan and our family. Maria's contributions are invaluable, and I expect everyone to respect that." Her words eased some of the tension, though murmurs of discontent lingered. To ensure harmony, Sarah hired additional specialists to collaborate with Maria. A speech therapist joined the team, incorporating Maria's multilingual approach into structured sessions. An occupational therapist helped Ethan refine motor skills through culturally inspired crafts. By combining expertise, they created a balanced program tailored to Ethan's needs. As Ethan continued to grow, his abilities expanded beyond mere vocabulary. He developed a unique way of blending languages to convey complex emotions. For instance, when he wanted to express gratitude, he combined merci, thank you in French, with te quiero, I love you in Spanish, creating his own hybrid phrase. These innovations delighted Sarah, who saw them as proof of Ethan's creativity and intelligence. One day, while visiting Ethan's school, Sarah noticed something remarkable. During recess, Ethan approached a classmate who looked upset. Instead of staying silent, as he might have done before, he gently placed a hand on the boy's shoulder and said, "Daijubu? Are you okay?" in Japanese. The classmate blinked in surprise, then nodded, offering a small smile. It was a tiny moment, but it meant everything to Sarah. Her son wasn't just learning languages. He was using them to connect with others. By the end of the year, Ethan's transformation was undeniable. Teachers reported significant improvements in his social interactions. Friends described him as funny and curious, qualities they hadn't noticed before. Even doctors acknowledged his progress, praising the innovative blend of therapy and creativity. For Sarah, these achievements were bittersweet. On one hand, she felt immense pride in Ethan's growth. On the other, she recognized the sacrifices Maria had made to make it happen. Late nights preparing materials, early mornings rehearsing phrases, and countless hours spent nurturing Ethan. All of it stemmed from Maria's unwavering commitment. One evening, as Sarah tucked Ethan into bed, he looked up at her with bright eyes and said, "Gracias, Mama." "Thank you, Mom," in Spanish. Sarah kissed his forehead, her heart swelling with gratitude, not just for her son's progress but for the woman who had helped him find his voice. Through Maria's guidance, Ethan had embarked on a journey far greater than mastering words. He had discovered the power of connection, the beauty of diversity, and the courage to embrace his true self. And though challenges still lay ahead, Sarah knew they were ready to face them together. As Ethan's journey continued, Sarah couldn't help but marvel at how far he had come. From a boy who once struggled to communicate even basic needs, Ethan was now confidently navigating 9 languages and connecting with people in ways that seemed almost magical. Yet, as much as his progress filled her heart with joy, it also brought new challenges. Challenges that tested not only Ethan's resilience, but also the strength of their entire family. The first hurdle came unexpectedly during one of Ethan's speech therapy sessions. The therapist, a kind woman named Mrs. Patel, had been working closely with Maria to integrate multilingual exercises into Ethan's routine. But after several months, Mrs. Patel began expressing concerns. "Sarah," she said gently during a private meeting, "while I admire what you're doing, we need to consider the long-term effects of exposing Ethan to so many languages. It's possible this approach could lead to confusion or regression down the line." Sarah listened intently, her mind racing. She understood where Mrs. Patel was coming from. Traditional therapies often emphasized focusing on one language to avoid overwhelming autistic children. Yet everything she had seen so far suggested otherwise. Ethan wasn't regressing, he was thriving. Still, doubt crept into her thoughts. Was she being reckless? Could she be setting him up for failure? Determined to find answers, Sarah reached out to experts across the country. Some echoed Mrs. Patel's concerns, warning that mixing too many languages might hinder Ethan's ability to master any single one. Others, however, praised the method, citing studies that showed bilingualism, or even multilingualism, could enhance cognitive flexibility and problem-solving skills in autistic individuals. The conflicting opinions left Sarah torn. On one hand, she trusted Maria's instincts and the tangible results they were seeing. On the other, she couldn't ignore the possibility of unforeseen consequences. To ease her worries, she decided to consult Dr. Emily Carter, a renowned specialist in autism and communication disorders. Dr. Carter listened patiently as Sarah described Ethan's progress, nodding thoughtfully throughout the conversation. When Sarah finished, the doctor offered a balanced perspective. "Every child is unique," she explained. "While some may benefit greatly from multilingual exposure, others might struggle. The key is consistency and support. If Ethan continues to show improvement, there's no reason to stop. Just keep monitoring his development closely." Her words reassured Sarah, but they didn't eliminate the tension entirely. Back at home, debates about Ethan's education became more frequent, and sometimes heated. David, Sarah's husband, remained supportive but cautious. "I just don't want us to lose sight of what's best for him," he said one evening after dinner. "What happens if this stops working? Or worse, if it backfires?" Sarah sighed, feeling the weight of his concerns. "We'll cross that bridge when we come to it," she replied. "For now, all I know is that Ethan is happier than he's ever been. Isn't that worth taking a chance?" David nodded reluctantly, though his expression betrayed lingering doubts. Meanwhile, tensions within the household staff escalated. Lisa, the part-time nanny, grew increasingly resentful of Maria's growing influence. She complained to Sarah, multiple times accusing Maria of overstepping boundaries and undermining her authority. Other employees chimed in, voicing similar grievances. The atmosphere in the house became strained, with whispers of discontent spreading like wildfire. One particularly heated argument occurred between Maria and David. Frustrated by the ongoing complaints, David confronted Maria one afternoon. "You're here to clean and cook, not to take over my son's life," he snapped. "This has gone too far." Maria stood her ground, her voice steady despite the accusation. "Sir, I care deeply about Ethan. Everything I've done has been for his benefit. I never intended to cause trouble." The confrontation left everyone shaken, including Ethan, who overheard fragments of the argument from his room. That night, he retreated into himself, refusing to engage in any activities. It was a stark reminder of how fragile his progress could. Realizing the situation was spiraling out of control, Sarah called an emergency meeting with the entire staff. Sitting around the dining table, she addressed them directly. "I understand your concerns," she began. "But let me make one thing clear. Maria's work with Ethan isn't replacing anyone. It's enhancing our efforts. Her methods are making a difference, and I won't compromise on something that's helping my son. Moving forward, I expect full cooperation and respect from everyone." Her tone brokered no room for argument, and while some staff members grumbled under their breath, the tension eased slightly. To prevent further conflict, Sarah hired additional specialists to collaborate with Maria, ensuring Ethan received comprehensive care without stepping on anyone's toes. Despite these internal struggles, Ethan faced his own share of setbacks. There were days when frustration overwhelmed him, leading to meltdowns that left the entire family exhausted. One such incident occurred during a French lesson when Ethan struggled to pronounce a tricky word. No matter how many times Maria repeated it, he couldn't get it right. Tears streamed down his face as he pounded his fists against the table, shouting incomprehensible phrases in a mix of languages. Seeing her son unravel broke Sarah's heart. For a moment, she questioned whether they were pushing him too hard. But Maria remained calm, kneeling beside Ethan and speaking softly in Spanish. "Está bien, mi amor. Puedes intentarlo de nuevo." "It's okay, my love. You can try again." Slowly, Ethan calmed down, wiping his tears and giving Maria a small nod. These moments taught Sarah an important lesson. Progress wasn't linear. There would be highs and lows, breakthroughs and breakdowns. What mattered most was staying patient and supportive through it all. To address potential burnout, Maria introduced mindfulness practices into their daily routine. They started each morning with deep breathing exercises, followed by short meditation sessions. These calming rituals helped Ethan regulate his emotions, reducing the frequency of meltdowns. Additionally, Maria incorporated sensory play, like finger painting with textured materials, to provide outlets for stress. Another challenge arose when Ethan's school expressed concerns about his academic performance. While his social skills had improved dramatically, his grades in subjects like math and science lagged behind. Teachers worried that focusing too much on languages might detract from core academics. Once again, Sarah found herself defending their unconventional approach. She met with Ethan's teachers, explaining how language learning enhanced his critical thinking and memory retention. Together, they devised strategies to balance linguistic exploration with traditional coursework. For example, Maria used storytelling techniques to teach math concepts, turning equations into adventures involving pirates searching for treasure. Over time, Ethan's grades began improving, not because he suddenly excelled at math, but because he gained confidence in tackling difficult tasks. His newfound self-assurance spilled over into other areas of his life, making him more willing to take risks and embrace challenges. By the end of the year, the initial resistance had largely faded. Even Lisa softened her stance, acknowledging the positive impact Maria's methods had on Ethan. Friends and neighbors who once criticized Sarah's choices now praised her for thinking outside the box, and therapists who had doubted the effectiveness of multilingual approaches admitted they had underestimated its potential. Through it all, Ethan continued to flourish. He developed a knack for storytelling, entertaining Emma and his classmates with tales told in multiple languages. His artwork reflected his multicultural experiences, featuring vibrant depictions of landmarks from around the world. Most importantly, he formed meaningful connections with those around him, proving that communication went beyond words. It was about understanding and empathy. As Sarah looked back on the past year, she realized how much they had all grown, not just Ethan, but their entire family. They had faced obstacles, made mistakes, and learned valuable lessons along the way. Through perseverance and teamwork, they had turned a seemingly impossible dream into reality. Ethan's journey was far from over, but one thing was certain. He had found his voice, a voice that spoke not just in 9 languages, but in the universal language of love, courage, and hope. Years passed, and Ethan Thompson grew into a remarkable young man. At 15, he was no longer the shy, withdrawn boy who struggled to communicate. Instead, he had become a confident, curious teenager with a passion for languages, cultures, and connecting with people from all walks of life. His journey, from silence to fluency in 6 languages and basic understanding of 3 more, was nothing short of extraordinary. Sarah often reflected on how far Ethan had come. She remembered the days when she worried endlessly about his future, wondering if he would ever be able to express himself fully. Now, watching him interact effortlessly with others, whether it was greeting neighbors in Spanish or striking up conversations with tourists in French, filled her heart with pride. Ethan's transformation wasn't just personal, it had touched the lives of everyone around him, including Sarah herself. One of the most significant changes in Ethan's life was his newfound ability to advocate for himself. During high school, he joined a club called Global Voices, where students learned about different cultures and practiced public speaking. At first, Ethan hesitated to participate, fearing judgment from his peers. But Maria encouraged him, reminding him of how far he'd already come. "You have a gift, Ethan," she told him one evening. "Your words can inspire others." With that encouragement, Ethan took the stage during a club meeting and delivered a speech titled, "Finding My Voice Through Languages." He spoke about his struggles growing up, the frustration of feeling trapped inside his own mind, and how learning multiple languages had opened doors he never thought possible. When he finished, the room erupted in applause. Many of his classmates approached him afterward, sharing their admiration and asking questions about his experiences. That moment marked a turning point for Ethan. No longer content to stay in the background, he began embracing opportunities to share his story. He started volunteering at community centers, teaching children simple phrases in various languages. He even created a YouTube channel where he posted videos explaining the similarities and differences between languages, using humor and creativity to make learning fun. The channel quickly gained followers, with viewers praising Ethan's enthusiasm and unique perspective. Inspired by Ethan's journey, Sarah decided to take action on a larger scale. She founded a nonprofit organization called Voices Beyond Words, dedicated to exploring alternative therapies for children with autism. The initiative focused on personalized approaches, empowering families to think outside the box and embrace innovative methods tailored to their child's needs. Maria played a pivotal role, training caregivers and educators on how to incorporate language learning and cultural activities into therapy programs. The organization hosted workshops, webinars, and conferences, bringing together experts, parents, and advocates from around the world. One of its flagship events was an annual festival called World of Words, where participants celebrated diversity through music, art, and storytelling. Families shared their stories, exchanged ideas, and formed connections that transcended borders. For many, it became a source of hope and inspiration, a reminder that every child had the potential to thrive when given the right tools. Ethan became the face of the organization, traveling alongside Sarah to speak at events and meet families facing similar challenges. Whether addressing crowds in Paris, Tokyo, or Nairobi, he captivated audiences with his warmth and authenticity. His favorite phrase during speeches? Gracias, merci, danke, arigato. Thank you in 4 languages, symbolizing the bridges he had built along the way. Despite his success, Ethan remained humble and grounded. He credited much of his progress to Maria, whom he affectionately referred to as his second mom. Their bond remained unbreakable, with Maria continuing to guide him as he navigated adolescence. Together they explored new interests, such as cooking international dishes and writing bilingual poems. One of Ethan's proudest accomplishments was co-authoring a children's book titled The Boy Who Spoke 9 Languages, inspired by his own experiences. The book became a bestseller, resonating with readers of all ages. Emma, too, played a crucial role in Ethan's life. As his older sister, she had grown from a skeptical teenager into his biggest cheerleader. They spent hours practicing guitar, duets, blending English lyrics with melodies sung in other languages. Their performances at family gatherings always brought tears to Sarah's eyes, not because of their musical talent but because of the love and connection they shared. Even David softened over time, becoming one of Ethan's strongest supporters. He attended every event, proudly snapping photos and cheering from the sidelines. "I used to worry so much," he admitted during a quiet moment with Sarah. "But now I see how much Ethan has taught us about resilience and courage. He's changed our lives in ways I never imagined." As Ethan's story gained attention, it sparked debates within the autism community. Some professionals praised the multilingual approach, citing its benefits for cognitive development and social interaction. Others remained cautious, arguing that it might not work for every child. Critics questioned whether focusing on novelty overshadowed proven therapies, while supporters hailed it as a testament to individualized care. Through it all, Sarah stood firm, emphasizing that there was no one-size-fits-all solution. "What worked for Ethan may not work for someone else," she said during an interview. "The key is to listen to your child, trust your instincts, and be open to trying new things. Sometimes the answers lie in places we least expect." Her message resonated with countless families, inspiring them to seek creative solutions for their loved ones. Letters poured in from parents thanking Sarah for giving them hope. One mother wrote, "Reading about Ethan made me realize that my son's quirks aren't limitations, they're strengths waiting to be discovered." Today, Ethan travels the globe, advocating for inclusivity and celebrating diversity. He speaks passionately about finding one's voice, not just through words but through actions, empathy, and understanding. His journey has shown the world that autism isn't a barrier. It's a lens through which individuals experience the world differently. And sometimes those differences can lead to extraordinary achievements. For Sarah, the past few years have been a testament to the power of perseverance and teamwork. She often thinks back to the day she caught Maria teaching Ethan languages in his room. What seemed like an unusual discovery turned out to be the beginning of a transformative journey, one that redefined their family's future. Maria, too, has found fulfillment in her role. Though she still works as a housekeeper, her contributions extend far beyond cleaning and cooking. She travels internationally, sharing her insights at conferences and mentoring caregivers. Her village in Colombia remains close to her heart, and she dreams of one day building a center there to support children with autism. As for Ethan, he continues to dream big. He hopes to study linguistics in college, combining his love for languages with technology to create apps that help nonverbal individuals communicate. His ultimate goal? To ensure that no child ever feels silenced again. Looking back, Sarah realizes that their story is about more than just overcoming obstacles. It's about embracing uniqueness, celebrating diversity, and believing in the impossible. It's about finding beauty in unexpected places, a humble housekeeper, a curious boy, and the power of words. And sometimes, that's all it takes to change everything.